Hello, welcome to Savannah Knits. This is my knitting podcast where I talk all about the things that I'm knitting that are bringing me joy. And my name is Savannah, and I live in Utah in the United States with my family, my husband and our two little boys, where I am a stay-at-home mom, and then whenever I have a little bit of free time, I like to knit and read. So today the whole theme is a bunch of whips and some acquisitions. So if that sounds interesting, then let's get into it. And also don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment to help out my channel a little bit. And I just love getting to know you guys as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. I am wearing the Farnham sweater by the Knit Pearl Girl. I knitted this up in Drops Lima in petrol and off-white, and I can't remember what needle size I used, probably 4mm. And it is a very cozy, very fall themed sweater with the stripes, and I'm loving getting wear out of it. Utah is finally cold. I am so happy that it is cold. There's snow on the mountains. It's absolutely beautiful. So I am wearing all of the sweaters that I can. So yeah, that is what I'm wearing today. I have two whips to show you today. The first is the Musselburgh Hat by Ysolde Teague, and I am knitting mine in Treehouse Knits Spruce Sock in I Smell Snow. This little ball will clue you in on how much knitting I've gotten done the past 2 weeks. And I am making a size adult medium, and I am using a size 3mm needle. And let's see how long it is. This is what I've done. This is the marker that I put in for last episode, which was 2 weeks ago. So I've made much progress since then. I'm just straight stockinette. I went on a reading retreat last weekend where me and my friend just went to a cabin and read and relaxed for an entire weekend. And I only took this, and we ended up binging Nobody Wants This on Netflix. I had already seen it, but she hadn't, so we watched it together. So I feel like a lot of the stockinette was done while watching that entire season. So that was nice just to have something on while I'm working on all of this stockinette. And then other times just here and there as my kids are playing, or if I am being a passenger princess in the car or in the preschool pickup line, things like that. So yeah, I have made a very good amount of progress. I am almost to the decreases. You may already know about the construction of this hat, but for those who do not, basically making this symmetrical bean shape. You have the increases up here, and then you knit this very straight portion, and then at the bottom you do decreases so it looks exactly like at the top. And then when you're ready to put the hat together, you just fold it into itself so it's a double layer wherever, and then you fold up the brim so that it's technically 4 layers against your ears, which sounds very cozy and very warm. Now, a couple of days ago, I was measuring how much I have, and for the adult medium, you need to knit until the whole hat is like a little over 19 inches. And I think at this point, I'm about 17 inches, maybe 18. And I was looking at this tiny little ball of yarn I have, and I was getting worried. So I went back to the pattern and I looked at the yarn quantities, because I assumed that, like socks, most if not all sock patterns are written so that you can do any size of the sock using 1 skein of yarn. And I think I just assumed that was the case with the Musselburgh hat. But because my gauge is so tight on the Musselburgh, it's 8.5 inches or 8.5 stitches per inch, I need more yarn. So the Musselburgh hat is you measure what gauge you have and then go off of the pattern based on your gauge, so you don't have to meet a specific gauge, which is really nice. But because I am a tight knitter, I've noticed that I need at least 500 yards of yarn to do the full Musselburgh hat, and I did not realize that. I should have checked before, but I didn't. So I'm having to figure out how I can use almost all of this yarn but not run out at the end. And if I knit for over 19 inches as the pattern calls for an adult medium, then I'm going to run out of yarn. Now, a lot of people with the Musselburgh hat will just sub in another yarn because one part of the hat is going to be folded into the other, so you won't see it. So you won't see that scrap part of the hat. However, I know I talked about this last week. I had this line from a stitch marker and it was just messing up with my tension, and I also am not happy with my cast on circle. It doesn't look as neat as I want it to. So I determined that this half would be the one that I fold up into the hat so you can't see it. So that kind of foils my plan with like doing a scrap yarn on this end if I run out of yarn, because I want this end to be the one that you see on the outside. I also don't really like the idea of adding scrap yarn. I really just want to use what I have of this yarn and call it good. So to figure out how much yarn I need to save for the decrease portion, I figured out, I put this marker here and I measured my ball of yarn. I think I had 29 grams. And then I knit an inch and then I measured my ball again and I had 23 grams. So I know that I am using about 6 grams per inch of knitting that I do. So I measured my increases on this side and it's about 3.5 inches. And so I know I need to save some yarn for that. However, it's obviously I'm not going to use a full 6 grams per inch here because I'm going to be decreasing. So yeah, I was trying to figure out how much of the straight portion I can knit before I get to the decreases. So I went on Ravelry as well. I searched. The good thing about this pattern is there are thousands, I think like, oh, I can't remember. I'm really bad with numbers. There are a lot of people that have made this pattern. So I was able to search for my gauge, 8.5 stitches per inch. And there were some other people that had the same issue of running out of yarn or trying to figure out how many grams they need to save for the decreases. And I think someone started the decrease section with 12.5 grams. And they said they played a wicked game of yarn chicken, but barely won. So I know that that would be the absolute minimum I would need. Of course, her knitting style is different than mine, so we might not have the same grams needed for the decrease section. So I found another person that said they started the decrease section with 14 or 15 grams and they ended up having 6 grams left over. So there's another example. So from those two, I think I'm going to choose to do 14 to 15 grams left over just so I can make sure I'm not playing yarn chicken, because that sounds so stressful. So yeah, I'm just working on the straight section. It's kind of annoying to have to weigh my yarn all the time, but that's okay because I think I figured out that I could do maybe 1.5 inches of knitting before I do the decreases. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just doing 1.5 inches and then I will weigh my ball of yarn and see if I have that magic number of 14 or 15 grams. I may do 14, kind of do it a little bit riskier, but I think I'll still have plenty because that's more, because if the decrease section will be around 3 inches, technically I would need 18 grams. However, most of that decrease section is not going to be as wide as the straight section, so I'll need less. So I feel like 14 gives me a good cushion. I don't know, I'm just pulling these numbers out of thin air and other people's Ravelry projects, which I'm very grateful that they had on there. So that is the current plan. Hopefully it works out that I won't run out of yarn, and I also hope that I won't have a ton of yarn left over, and I also hope that the hat brim will be thick enough to fold up. One of my biggest fears is to have this hat. I would be fine if the brim didn't fold up on the hat, like if it was just a plain hat with no fold. I know Jackie is making on her podcast, she recently made a Musselburgh hat and didn't have the fold up section, and I really liked how that looked, just a more casual hat that doesn't need to be as warm with the folded up section. But I'm just hoping I'm not making it too long for that, because I don't like my hats to stick up a lot, like on the crown of the head. I want it to fit closely to my head whether or not I'm folding it up, and I'm afraid I'm going to be in that weird middle section where there's not enough fabric to fold it up, but there's too much fabric to just leave it down. But I think I'll be okay. According to some other people that also knit theirs shorter, they can still fold it up. It's just a little bit of a thinner brim, which I'm totally fine with. And honestly, even if I fold this in half, that still looks like a good hat size. So, and of course it will be more like this once I do the decreases on the opposite side. So it'll be like that big, which I think will be fine. I feel like I will be able to fold it in half, or at least fold the brim up is what I mean. So we'll just see how it goes. I am sure, well, I probably shouldn't say that and jinx myself. I hope that I will have this done by the next podcast. I'm also going to start doing podcasts every 2 weeks because I find myself stressing about knitting a ton so I can have a lot of things to show you guys, and that's just not sustainable. And also we can just focus on having you know, a more enjoyable knitting experience and celebrating the slowness of knitting. And I don't want to be someone who feels like I need to be knitting a ton to show on podcasts. That's not the kind of knitter I want to be. So we're going to switch to every 2 weeks, so that way I have a little bit more time to just enjoy the process and not feel like I need to have stuff to show you guys all the time. Anyways, that was a tangent. I started this on October 7th. So I've been working on it for 3 weeks and 3 days, and hopefully it will just be 1 more week of doing this, maybe 2, and I will have this ready. Already my boys are wanting to play outside when it's freezing, and I really just want this done so I can actually wear it. I can imagine myself throwing this on all of the time because it is kind of a neutral color with a twist of the variegation that I love. There's lots of, you know, greens and pinks and purples and blues. So I think I will just wear this with everything. So that is my Musselburgh Hat by Ysolde Teague. My second whip is the Book Club Cardigan by Sari Nordlund. I'm making a size 4, and I am using Drops Nepal in light beige, and I'm using a 4mm needle with that, which is creating a quite dense fabric, which I think is okay for a cardigan because it can be more like a jacket, very warm. And I have made some progress, people, so much progress. I have basically a cardigan. I have made such good progress. I will show you the marker. That was last time. Let's see, where is it? There it is. So I was there. As you can see, I have finished the body. I have knit 1 sleeve, and I have almost finished the other sleeve. So the last time we were talking, I was wondering how long to make this. I was talking about wanting to finish this diamond, so knit all the way down, just finish the diamond so it would be at this point, and then do the ribbing, because I thought it would look better and I just wanted it to be a finished chart repeat before I did the ribbing. However, after that episode, after talking about it, and I talked to Nathan, my husband, a little bit about it as well, and he said, you know, I think it looks great if you just leave it as it is, if you leave it at kind of that halfway point in the middle of the diamond. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, I actually prefer it that way, but it just depends on what you prefer. And so I went to Ravelry and I looked at a bunch of different projects, and people have really ended in many different places on the chart repeat before they're ribbing. And honestly, I think the ones that end with a full diamond are beautiful, but I also think the ones that end in the middle of the diamond are also great too. And I also realized that I'm a little bit worried about yarn, because some people have said that they're running out of yarn on this project, and I don't want to be stressed about that. I know I can always order more. This yarn is very easy to get a hold of. I order from Linda Hobby, and they're always great at matching dye lots if I need to get more skeins. So it's not going to be that big of a deal, but I really would just rather not pay for shipping and pay for more balls if I don't need to. So I was worried about that. And then a commenter made a good point about the button band, that I would have to do a longer button band and kind of figure things out like that if I did make it longer, which isn't a huge deterrent because I could figure it out, but just another kind of step. And then I don't know, it was just getting to a good length, and I didn't want it to be too long, and I was honestly kind of ready to move on. I've mentioned this before, that all of these gorgeous cables and gorgeous pattern is worth it, but it is causing me quite a bit of hand and arm pain. So I called it quits, did the ribbing, did the bind off, and honestly, I think it looks great. I think you can't even really tell that. I feel like my eyes aren't drawn to the fact that I ended on kind of half a diamond. So I think it worked out great in the end. And so with the body finish, it ended up being a 1/4 inch longer than the pattern suggests. So I'll have to keep that in mind for when I do the button band, but I don't think it will be very hard, because with the button band, you're just picking up every row, a stitch for every row, and there's no numbers involved. It just says pick up a stitch for every row, put in markers where you want the buttons, and then it tells you what to do from there. So I don't think that will be too much of an issue. And I did find that with the ribbing, so it calls for a 3mm needle for the ribbing, but I'm using my 3mm on the Musselburgh hat. So I decided to do a 3.25mm, and I think it looks just fine with that. I also was wary of going too much lower, because I feel like the 4mm with worsted weight yarn is causing some of my hand pain as well. It's just creating this very dense fabric. So 3.25mm for the ribbing. I am happy with that. And also, this is heavy. It's gonna be a warm cardigan. All right, let's talk about the sleeves. My pet peeve when you're picking up for sleeves is when a pattern gives you a specific number and not a pickup rate. If it has a specific number, that's okay, but give me the pickup rate so I know how much to pick up without having to do it 2 or 3 times. I know that you can do math to figure that out with your gauge. I know Patty Lyon's Knitting Bag of Tricks book, she talks about that, of how to figure that out, but I avoid math like the plague. So I ended up trying to pick up 2 out of every 3. And I got way too many stitches for a size 4. And looking on Ravelry, there are a lot of people that said the sleeves are too small for my size. So I went up a size for the sleeve. A lot of patterns said that, which I thought was very interesting. So when I counted how many stitches I had picking up 2 out of every 3 rows, I had the exact count for the size 5 sleeve, which is a size above what I'm knitting. So I just decided to knit a size 5 for this sleeve, and it has been working out very well. It fits great, which I am happy with. I ended a similar row to the body, so kind of that half diamond, and then I did the ribbing on a 3.25 millimeter as well, and then a tubular bind off. And yeah, very happy with the length. I'm expecting it to grow a little bit, so I didn't knit as long as I would want it to, because I am expecting maybe an inch of growth as per the norm for my blocking and other sweaters that I have done. Just barely started the ribbing on this side. I'm only a couple rows in, so by next time it would be amazing if I had this sleeve done and then I had the button band done. This is my first time doing a button band that isn't just a normal ribbed button band. I think this one is, as far as I can tell, it's kind of like a sock where you're knitting one and slipping one and then purling back across and then picking up stitches as you're going across. I don't know if I'm making sense, but it's my first time doing a button band where you're working like up the sweater instead of picking up stitches and then working horizontally. You're working vertically this time. So I am excited to figure that out. I kind of like the idea of being able to place the buttons wherever I want and then just follow the pattern when it says to add in a buttonhole. I'm excited about that too with this particularly, because a lot of people on Ravelry as well said that the top button is a little bit too high for them. It hits at an awkward spot. So I want to make sure that I get the button placement exactly right, and this button band seems very nice to be able to customize that for myself. I don't know if I'm going to add 3 buttons instead of 4, or if I'm just going to move that top one down and make the other buttons more closer together. We'll just see what looks the best. So I'm just excited to learn a new technique with cardigan button bands. I am also running into a little bit of the same issue with the Musselburgh hat where I don't have a lot of yarn left. So I'm really glad I didn't go longer on the body, because that would have been even more stressful. But all I have is this much left. That's enough, right? For the rest of the sleeve and the button band. Hopefully, I feel like it's enough. But I have been wrong before. I'm really bad at estimating. I think because I'm still not a newer knitter, but I just haven't had a lot of experience with yarn chicken or like using all of the yarn. I usually have a skein or 2 left over of my projects, but I'm trying to do less of that because I don't want all of these random skeins that I have to figure out what to do with. So I'm trying to be a little bit more smart, but also a little bit more risky with what I'm buying. And I don't know if I might just go back to buying the extra skein because this is stressful. But I think I'll be okay. I think I'll be fine. I'm choosing to be hopeful. As I mentioned, it is causing some hand and arm pain, but I was able to take a good break at the reading retreat with my friend. I didn't work on this for a whole weekend from Thursday to Sunday, so that was a good break. And now I'm done with all of the cables and the pattern and everything. Now it's just ribbing, which isn't too bad, and then the button band, which I'm not doing these crazy cables or anything. So I feel like hopefully it will fly now and I won't have a lot of pain anymore. It hasn't been too bad. I've been doing some stretches and taking breaks, reading some more. So yeah, I started the Book Club Cardigan on September 20th. So I have been working on it for 1 month and 10 days. That is all for whips today, and I have so many acquisitions to show you. I have kind of gone a little crazy the past 2 weeks, and I also got a very generous pile of gifts from my mom and dad, so I can't wait to show it all to you. I also have a couple of books from a publisher to show you as well. So let's start with the presents from my parents. They went on an overnight to Park City, Utah. My mom is really good at finding deals at like boutiques and thrift stores and things like that. And she also went to a yarn store for me and picked some things out as a surprise, and It was so fun to unwrap. So I'll show you the yarn first. She got me Barocco Vintage, which I've never tried Barocco yarn before, but I've heard great things. So yeah, this is Barocco Vintage. It is a acrylic wool and nylon blend, and this is color 5192 in Chana Doll, I think is how you say that. I love this color so much. I need a sweater in this color. It's so pretty. This is a worsted weight yarn as well. It is 100 grams for 200 meters. And then I have this one. This is color 5102 in buttercream. Same worsted weight. So beautiful colors together. She was imagining socks, and that's what I'm imagining too. I've been actually wanting a thicker pair of socks to wear at night, and I think these will work fantastically together. I think I'm going to do a base color of this with a cream heel and toe. Beautiful. I'm so happy. They're very soft, very lovely. So adding those two to my stash. She and my dad also surprised me with 3 knitting books, and I think you will recognize at least one of these. The first one is Softly by Sari Nordlund, Softly Timeless Knits. Such a pretty book. These are like coffee table books. Like, even if you aren't a knitter, it's just beautiful to flip through. Like, they have so many beautiful landscape photos, city photos, things like that. I'm a big fan of Sari Nordlund. I'm making her Book Club cardigan right now. I have made her poet tee. I find her patterns just very classic and very beautiful, and so I cannot wait to make some of these. I'm kind of eyeing this sweater right here, this pullover. Yeah, she's got some beautiful lace and color work, lots of accessories as well. And the second one that I got is Lakeside Stitches by Ranja, I want to say Rania Hakalito. I'm sorry, my Scandinavian friends. I will zoom up on the name so that you can pronounce that correctly in your head. I have been wanting this book so badly, and I was so surprised she got it for me. She didn't even know. I say she because my mom mostly picked these out. She didn't even know that I wanted this book, and I have been wanting it so badly. I think the color work is stunning. I have been eyeing this sweater for so long. It's gorgeous. So, very excited about this one. And then also this one I haven't heard about. I feel like it looks familiar, but this is Urban Knits by, oh man, that person. Lini Hamila. And again, beautiful, beautiful patterns in here that are timeless and beautiful. I keep saying beautiful. I am eyeing these socks. I am sorry for the dog barking if you can hear that. Anyways, I am just so happy she got me these 3 books. And I said, like, why are you giving all of these to me? And she's like, I'm investing in your future. Tear. So nice of her. They're probably going to count as early birthday because that is too much. Okay, and then I did get 2 sweater quantities worth of yarn. I'm just stocking up for winter. Now I am covered for all of my winter projects. I showed you some Let's Lopey that I got in my last podcast episode. And then I saw this color and I had to have it. This is the color Milky Way. It is a blue purpley pink blend. This is 50 grams for 100 meters, so worsted weight. And I think it is roving. Is that what you call it? So I am going to make the other, I'm planning on making the port jacket by Ysolde using the same yarn she used, which is this Let Lopey, but I'm using the gray color that's in the sample. And I want to test that one to see how it feels on my skin. It will be fine as a jacket or a coat because I will be wearing it over things, but I want to test my tolerance of it because this is a very woolly, a little bit scratchy yarn. So if I can't handle it very well, this will be another cardigan or a jacket. And if I can handle it, then I'm gonna do a sweater. So we'll just wait and see how the port jacket turns out before I decide what to do with this. And then I also got some more drop Slima because I love this sweater so much. I love the fabric, I love the lightness of it. So I ended up getting more. And this is sea green. And I want to make the Sadie sweater by Ozetta with this. I've been eyeing the Sadie sweater for a while. It's exactly my style. I am more of a comfort over style kind of girl, and I love the sweatshirt feel, the sweatshirt look, and this looks like an elevated sweatshirt. So that's my plans with this. And then I have 2 books to show you from David & Charles Publishing. They sent me the Doodle Knit Directory. I have seen a lot of people talk about this book. I'm very excited. It has a lot of charts for colorwork shapes. And then what's cool about this is she has ways that you can stack them to make your own kind of striped knits, but striped as in you're striping colorwork. So that, I think that's why she calls it doodles, because you're just doodling as you're knitting. You're just choosing which one you want to come next. Like with this one, it's just different kinds of color work stacked on top of each other. So she has a lot of different patterns for scarves and hats and mittens, socks, very fun things, even cowls. I think it's a really cool idea to just make something that is wholly unique to you, that no one else is going to make that combination. So, and even if you don't do the doodling part, it still has a lot of charts that you can reference if you're making your own colorwork socks or sweaters or whatever other accessories. So that is the first one. And then I also got Knit a Box of Socks. This is by Julie Ann LeBouthlier, maybe. And again, I'm just adding more beautiful socks patterns to my stash. I love having all different kinds of sock patterns because I just am really big into colorwork socks at the moment. Not that I'm knitting them, but just that I want to be knitting them, and they look very inspiring to me and beautiful. So I just have 24 more sock patterns to add to my options, which I love. So a huge thank you to David & Charles Publishing for sending me these review copies. If you have made it this far, thank you so much. And before we go, I want to bring back my media part of the podcast. I used to do watching and reading updates, and I have just not been doing it the past couple times, but I want to bring that back because it is a big part of my life. As you can see, the bookshelf. And I think it's just fun to check in with you guys and tell you what I have been reading and loving lately. And I love when other knitters do that as well. I love getting recommendations. So if you are reading anything great or watching anything great, please leave a comment so that I can check it out. I would love that. As I mentioned, I went to a reading retreat this past weekend. I read so many books, and all of them were just stellar. Loved all of them. I'm going to highlight 2 that I loved. I read The Will of the Many by James Islington. This book is so good. It is a adult fantasy dystopian type book. It combines the best of the Roman Empire, a dystopian society, a magic system that kind of relates to Brandon Sanderson a little bit. Got a underdog main character that is also just very smart, and I love smart characters. I love feeling smart as a reader, and I can feel smart when the character is very smart. So it also has a academic setting as well, so it just combines all of the best things of fantasy books that I love. The writing is phenomenal and very smart, and also easy to get into, I feel like, too. It's not overwhelming. Even though it's thick, once you get into it, you won't want to put it down. The second one that I read is a advanced reader copy of We Redeemed the Rain by Ashley Dill. It is a cowboy romance. Loved it. It has so much depth, so much trauma. Definitely check the trigger warnings before you read it. I think she has an author's note before the book starts as well. So it just was very heartwarming, very powerful romance. I enjoyed it a lot. It comes out November 19th. And then currently reading Love Holly by Emma Stone, and it is a Christmas romance, although I've heard that you can read it at any time of the year. That would be fine, but also just really enjoying that one as well. So if you've read any of the books that I've mentioned, please let me know what you thought of them. I'd love to chat about those. And I also would love to know what you are currently working on, maybe some gift knits that you're thinking about as well, or just future knitting plans in general. And yes, as I mentioned before, I will be doing a podcast every 2 weeks now, so you'll catch me in 2 weeks. Sometimes I'll sprinkle in other kinds of videos in between. However, the standard will just be every 2 weeks now. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry at Savannah Knits. Keep my Ravelry perfectly updated. So if you ever have any questions about past projects or current projects and yarns and things like that, head over there to my project page. And then Instagram, just have a lot more of day-to-day stuff and post about finished objects and books, reviews, and things like that. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you feel so inclined. I hope you guys are knitting what is bringing you joy, and I will catch you next time. Bye.